553. That's how many days it's been since 100 Thieves last won a game of Ascent. It's pretty unbelievable. They haven't won a game on one of the oldest and most unchanging maps in a year and a half. There's no way you can be a top level team without finding any success on one of the game's most long-standing maps. And yet, this stat line was just a fraction of the issues this team suffered across the 2023 season, which just goes to show how unbelievably disappointing this past year was for 100 Thieves. I watched as week to week, match to match, this roster just consistently failed to deliver. And with every new match I thought to myself, is this the one where they figure it out? I mean, come on. Looking at their team on paper, a team with Cryocells, Asuna, Bang, and Derrek should not be struggling to make the playoffs. But yet, they never made it. Now looking onwards to 2023, have 100 Thieves made the right moves to catapult them into success? Or are they destined for another failed year? Back around 9 months ago, I uploaded a video on this channel titled What's Wrong with 100 Thieves Valorant? It was fresh off the heels of their hilariously bad end of season loss against MIBR to not make it into the playoffs. In the video, I went over some of the biggest issues I saw with the team over the course of their 2023 season, namely the loss of their former head coach Sean Garris and Stellar's pretty poor job at IGLing the team. You can still check it out today if you want a better look overall at their 2023 season, but I'd steer clear of it considering for whatever reason I just sounded terrible in that video and it even hurts me to watch today. But looking at what the team has done in the offseason, I think they made all the right changes. They got a new IGL, a new initiator player, and a new head coach. But even so, there's just something about this team and the players left behind that still have me thinking that this team won't do much better in 2024.
For the defensive side. And Boostio's getting a little cheeky here. He's by himself. Dude, they're doing this on their own. Talk about feeling themselves. He's got no help!
Spike down A.
Let's take a look at their changes, starting with their new IGL Boostio. It was very evident from watching 100 Thieves last year that the IGLing and mid-rounding in specific was very weak for this team. They absolutely needed a new IGL going into the off-season, and who better than the current world champion in Boostio of Evil Geniuses. This past year, Boostio proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that he is one of the best IGLs in the world. Alongside head coach Potter, Boostio managed to take a group of players no one expected anything out of and make them into Masters finalists and world champions. He was a fantastic caller with great mid-round adaptations, which, like already mentioned, was something very lacking in last year's 100 Thieves roster. And even though he's an IGL, this guy can put up big numbers. While sometimes IGLs can be a liability on the scoreboard, that definitely wasn't the case for Boostio this past year. He was always able to hold his own frag-wise and came up with some huge multi-kills in EG's run at Tokyo and Champions. There really isn't much more to say about the guy. 100 Thieves needed a new IGL and they got arguably the best one on the market. Now, alongside Boostio, 100 Thieves decided to bring in new initiator player Eeiu of M80. Like I alluded to earlier, the two clear biggest weaknesses of this roster were their IGL and initiator. Their initiator player last year, Derrek, had one of the most disappointing performances of the Americas League. He was ranked 31st across the league in impact rating with a 0.99 rating, 184 ACS, 0.91 KD, and 127 ADR. Now, these stats aren't the worst, but considering how well he played in the 2022 season and how high our expectations of him were, he definitely fell considerably short. The meta was certainly not in his favor. Having to move away from Sova to play a lot of Sky and Killjoy really put him in a rough spot. Not to mention, he also went from being one of the most clutch players in 2022 to being one of the worst this past year with a clutch win percentage of 8%. It definitely didn't help. 100 Thieves needed a new initiator if they wanted to be competitive this year. In comes Eeiu. Eeiu was consistently one of the best initiator players across Challengers Americas this past year. His gun skill is definitely up there with some of the best, and his util usage was always on point. For comparison, he definitely reminds me of a slightly less refined Crashies. Very consistent, very solid, not particularly flashy, but always gets the job done. I'm excited to see what he can do this year in Tier 1, and looking at the options available, I really do think 100 Thieves made the right choice picking this guy up. As for what stayed the same at 100 Thieves, the organization opted to keep players Asuna, Bang, and Cryocells, and while they're all good players in their own right, the stock on these players are undeniably at an all-time low, and it's not necessarily because of how they individually played, but how they played together. If you could chalk up all their problems into one word, it would be synergy. This team simply lacked any good synergy last year. They were slow, unconfident, and didn't trust each other. They looked scared to play the game the entire last year. They were terrible at trading for each other, often leaving Cryo to the wolves once he dashed onto site with Jet. They looked scared to take gunfights and took too long to peek an angle when they needed to. They didn't trust each other as teammates, and quite frankly, looked like rookies out there sometimes. They were stagnant and slow to follow up on utility when taking space. It was honestly sad to watch at times as a fan of the team. Now, if they're looking to fix things, these are all big challenges to tackle. If the team wants to do better in 2024, they're gonna have to have a huge shift in gameplay and mentality, which is why I'm actually a big fan of their move to pick up Zix, the former assistant coach of EG, as their new head coach. Of course, Zix is best known as being a part of the coaching staff that led EG to winning champs in 2023, so he knows what it takes to take a team to the highest level in Pro Valorant, and having already worked with Boostio all of last year, that's definitely gonna come in handy when trying to shift the dynamic of the team this year. And from the interviews I've already seen of him, it looks like he's taking those necessary steps to change their team culture.
I think that me and Boosie are like the heads of that culture, and we like live by it. So we want to make sure that, you know, we call people out and that we're good role models for the other players, and that as a result of that, they're going to call each other out.
Also, with Zix stepping into the head coaching position, it allows Mike's HD to fall back into the assistant coach position, something that I think his personality and skills are much better suited for. We also need to talk a bit specifically on Cryocells, because this guy was supposed to be their superstar player heading into the 2023 season. You gotta remember, in 2022, in the chamber meta, Cryo was legit one of the most impactful players in the world. This guy had sick opping skills, and the Sentinel role seemed to better suit his passive playstyle. As the meta moved away from chamber in 2024, Cryo really struggled to make the swap back to Jet. Through the first 4 weeks of VCT, Cryo was not playing up to standard, putting up pretty average stats in the major categories. But past week 5 onwards, something pretty cool happened.
Maybe being hit, what a shot! Stewart! Gets out alive with his life, stunned up! This is what they were hunting for, this is what they were hoping for. You couldn't have asked for more, Cryo! 3, 4, will he make it 5? Round the side, ace!
Cryo found his footing and managed to significantly improve his stats across the board on rating, ACS, KD, ADR, and even KPR. But despite his effort, 100 Thieves still struggled with team issues and only won a single match in the last 4 weeks of the season. But those last 4 weeks were still important because they showed that when he's in form, Cryo can really compete with the best in the league. Come 2024, if he is able to start off hot from the get-go, 100 Thieves can definitely do some damage and upset some of the better teams. I certainly think Cryo's impact will be crucial for the team's success this year. So how will 100 Thieves do in VCT 2024? Despite the significant upgrades in the roster and coaching staff, 100 Thieves just had too many issues last year for me to be confident in them this year. A lot of their issues are just hard to teach. You can't really teach someone how to trust their teammates, and you definitely can't teach confidence. Sure, you can point them in the right direction, but ultimately, it comes down to the players themselves. You could tell from the games they played last year that they slowly adopted a losing mindset, playing not to lose instead of playing to win. If Asuna, Bang, and Cryo think Zix and Boostio are just gonna come in and easily fix all their problems, they're certainly mistaken. If these players really want to elevate their game, they're gonna have to put in some serious work and shift their mindset entirely, which is certainly no small task. There are some big names on this roster, and they really just need to remind themselves who they are. That being said, This team should be aiming to make the playoffs at the bare minimum, and with a stroke of luck, maybe qualify for Masters Shanghai and Champions. I'm looking to place this team in the 7th to 8th position for the upcoming Americas League. If this team can make things click, they're legit gonna be a scary team, but we'll just have to wait to see if they can pull off their biggest heist yet. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out more of my VCT related content on the left hand side of your screen. Like the video and be sure to subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks so much for watching, guys.